Last summer, on August 13, 2018, my daughter Shanann Watts and her children were murdered. They were killed by Shannon's husband and the children's father, Chris Watts. I can't possibly describe how painful the last 11 months have been for myself, my wife, and my son, Frankie Jr., and for everyone else who cared so much about Shanann and her children. Just dealing with this type of tragedy is more than a family should bear. But I am making a statement today because for the past 11 months, piled on top of pain and the grieving of this devastating loss, our family has been subject to, horribly, cruelly abused, outright bullying, and on a daily basis. I don't want to draw more attention to the viral material that has been posted online, and so I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that our family, including Shanann and her children and our grandchildren, have been ridiculed, demeaned, slandered, mocked in the most vicious ways you can imagine. We have been subject to false accusations, fake Facebook accounts, hate speeches, and constant stream of ugly, evil insults and attacks. Every time we turn around, there is someone trying to capitalize on our tragedy. By spreading false rumors and outright lies about Shanann and our grandchildren. We have been subject to threats on our lives, all because we are victims in painful tragedy. This is so wrong. It is cruel, it is heartless, it is flat wrong. It breaks my heart to know that we are not the first family to have to live through this kind of tragedy, and we won't be the last. Families like ours should have the right to be safe and the right of a basic level of privacy, the right to mourn in peace. And it boils my blood that my family and other families are dealing with worse imaginable tragedy, have to deal with this kind of cruelty and bullying. It needs to stop. To Congress, or to any position in power, we are calling on you to do something to pass laws that will protect victims of unspeakable crimes from this kind of abuse. Our online social media sites like Facebook, YouTube, and
7 years after one of the most haunting family murders in American history, the silence broke once more. Not from Chris Watts behind prison walls, but from the father who lost everything. It happened during a quiet, emotional interview. Frank Rzucek, Shanann's father, sat across from the camera, eyes heavy with the kind of pain that doesn't fade. It simply learns to live with you. His voice trembled, but there was something stronger underneath. Conviction. The world had asked him the same question for years. Could he ever forgive Chris Watts, the man who took his daughter and granddaughters? He leaned forward and said what many could never imagine hearing. He called Chris a monster in disguise, a man who fooled everyone, even those closest to him. And when asked if forgiveness was possible, Frank's answer was as cold as the truth itself. There's nothing to forgive. You can't forgive someone who never showed real remorse. The air seemed to freeze. The interviewer didn't push further. They didn't need to. Those words carried the weight of every sleepless night, every memory of laughter that now echoed in loss. 7 years later, time had done nothing to soften the edges. Chris Watts remained the same, confined, emotionless, and living with the aftermath of his unthinkable crimes. But for Frank, the wounds were not scars. They were still open, still bleeding, just quieter now. Because how do you forgive the man who destroyed your entire world? Before the headlines, before the horror, there was a picture-perfect family. Shanann Watts was the kind of woman who radiated positivity, always smiling, always striving, always trying to make the world believe that life was beautiful. Her social media pages glowed with family photos. Chris standing proudly beside her, their daughters Bella and Celeste giggling in every frame. To outsiders, it was the American dream, a hardworking couple raising two beautiful girls in a cozy Colorado home.
We're gonna go spend time with our families, and friends and everything else, and then we're gonna come back August 7th, and then I fly to Scottsdale, Arizona on the 11th for a mini little retreat with my team, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. What are you doing? This child does not sit still ever. Look at this. Bella, say hi. Bella, say hi. And I really love the fact that careful, Cece, there's a table there. Child. Yeah, day in the life with Cece. And just feel blessed that we can do that. We can travel the world. One day Chris can travel that long with us. You wonder why I need Thrive. That kid right there. 7:15 in the morning. Cece. Thrive is a must.
High fives?
Come say hi, Nana, Papa. Mimi, Papa.
Shanann was driven, meticulous, and endlessly devoted. She battled health struggles, but never let them define her. She believed in love, in family, in the future. And then there was Chris. Quiet, reserved, and seemingly gentle. Her family loved him at first. He was polite, helpful, and steady. But as the years passed, subtle cracks began to appear. He became distant. The spark that once defined their marriage started to fade, replaced by silence and avoidance. Still, Shanann fought for it. She believed that with enough love, patience, and prayer, she could save their marriage. But what she didn't know was that Chris had already begun living another life, one built on lies and betrayal. While Shanann was recording videos about family and faith, Chris was sending secret messages to another woman. While she planned their future, he was planning his escape. In Frank Rzucek's eyes, that's what made it all unforgivable. His daughter never gave up, not on her husband, not on her family. And yet, the man she trusted most was the one quietly preparing to destroy it all. Because sometimes, the most dangerous monsters are the ones smiling right next to you. If you're still watching this far, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime. We tell the stories the world can't forget, and the truth no one dares to say out loud. In the summer of 2018, things began to change in ways Shanann couldn't quite explain, but she could feel them. The man who once texted her, "I love you," every morning now replied with silence. The husband who once kissed her goodnight now turned away, claiming exhaustion. First, she blamed herself. Maybe it was the distance caused by her constant travel for work. Maybe Chris was stressed. Maybe the spark had just faded. She refused to believe it could be something more. But her instincts whispered otherwise. During a trip to North Carolina to visit her family, Shanann began confiding in her friends and parents. She told them Chris felt off, that he was detached, cold, and oddly defensive. He wasn't calling, wasn't texting, wasn't there. Even when she reached out with love, he responded with emptiness. Her mother, Sandy, urged her to come home for good, to take a break. But Shanann, ever the fighter, believed she could fix it. She loved her husband, even when the love didn't come back. What Shanann didn't know was that, back in Colorado, Chris had already found someone new, Nicole Kessinger. The affair had begun quietly, then consumed him entirely. He was no longer thinking about saving his marriage. He was imagining a new life. For Shanann, the red flags kept flashing brighter. Strange expenses on the credit card, secretive behavior, new gym routines. She wrote in her notes that she didn't recognize him anymore. And she was right, because by then, the man she had married, the man her father once trusted, was already gone. August 12, 2018, it was supposed to be an ordinary night. Shanann returned home from a business trip, exhausted but hopeful. She had spent the past week trying to reach Chris, to understand what was happening to their marriage. Her last texts to him were filled with love, confusion, and a desperate need for clarity. Friends remember her boarding the flight back to Colorado late that night. She smiled weakly, saying she just wanted to fix things. But behind that smile was fear, the kind that comes from knowing something is very, very wrong. Chris met her at home after midnight. Security cameras captured her walking up to the front door for the last time. That image, Shanann, carrying her purse, walking into her own home unaware of what awaited her, has become one of the most chilling visuals in true crime history. The next morning, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Shanann missed a doctor's appointment. She didn't respond to calls or texts. Her friend, Nicole Atkinson, grew concerned and drove to the Watts home. When no one answered the door, she called the police. Officers arrived, expecting a welfare check. What they found instead was a mystery drenched in unease. An empty home, a missing family, and a husband whose story kept changing by the minute. Chris stood on the driveway giving interviews, pleading for his wife and kids to come home. His face was calm, his voice steady, but his eyes told another story. The calm before the storm had passed. The darkness had already begun to unfold behind closed doors. The world first saw Chris Watts as a heartbroken husband. He appeared on camera, pleading for the safe return of his pregnant wife and 2 little girls. His arms were folded, his voice calm, almost rehearsed. To the untrained eye, he looked like a man in pain. But to those who truly knew him, something about his demeanor felt wrong, cold, detached, unnatural. Detectives noticed it too. His story shifted each time they asked a question. He claimed Shanann and left with the children after an argument, then changed it to, "I don't know where they are." The inconsistencies were piling up fast, and so was the pressure.
What's going on right now around your house?
Right now it's you got K9 units, the sheriff's department. Everybody's like they're doing their best right now to figure out like if they can get a scent, see where they went. If they went on foot, they went in a car, or they went somewhere. And right now it's just like they've been on point. They're going through the house trying to get a scent, and hopefully they can pick something up to where it's going to lead to something.
What happened? Your wife came home. Tell me what's.
She came home from the airport 2 a.m. and I left around 5:15. She was still here, and like about 12:10 in that afternoon, her friend Nicole showed up at the door. Like I had texted Shanann a few times that day, called her, say but she never got back to me. But she wasn't getting back to any of her people as well, and that's what really concerned a lot of people. Is like if she's not getting back to her, like if she doesn't get back to me, that's fine. Like she gets busy during the day, but she didn't get back to her people, which was very concerning. And Nicole called me when she was at the door, and that's when I came home. And then walked in the house, and nothing was vanished. Nothing was here. I mean, she wasn't here. The kids weren't here. Nobody was here.
What's your wife's name?
Shanann, Shanann.
What's your kids?
Bella and Celeste.
How do you spell Celeste?
Celeste.
How old are your daughters?
4, Bella's 4, Celeste is 3.
And so, how many times did you try calling her?
I called her 3 times, texted her about 3 times just to say, what's going on. Like because after I called her and texted her once, it's like maybe she was just busy. Like she had just gotten back. Like everybody's probably calling her from her trip. She just got back from Arizona, and I figured she was just busy. But when her friend showed up, that's what it was like. It registered like, all right, this isn't right.
Do you think she just took off? Do you think?
I mean, right now I don't even want to just like throw anything out there. Like I hope that she's somewhere safe right
Then came the neighbor's surveillance footage, the one that would start to crack the entire case open. The video showed Chris backing his truck into the garage early that morning, loading something large before driving off. He claimed it was tools for work, but investigators saw something different. Within hours, he failed a polygraph test. The calm mask shattered, replaced by panic. He asked to speak with his father, and it was during that emotional moment that the horrifying truth began to emerge. Chris admitted he had killed Shanann, and at first, he tried to blame her for what happened to the children. A desperate, twisted lie to salvage his image. But soon, the full confession came out. He ended the lives of his wife, their daughters Bella and Celeste, and their unborn son, Nico. The nation was horrified. The mask of the perfect family man was gone, revealing the monster beneath. If you're still watching this far, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime. We tell the stories the world can't forget, and the truths no one dares to say out loud. The confession sent shockwaves across the country. The man who once held his daughters in his arms now stood before detectives, emotionless, describing how he ended their lives. Even the seasoned investigators couldn't hide their disbelief. His words were mechanical, detached, as if he were reading someone else's story. When news reached Shanann's family, devastation doesn't begin to describe it. Frank and Sandy Rzucek fell to their knees in anguish. The images of Shanann and the girls, once symbols of love and joy, were now reminders of a horror no parent could ever comprehend. Chris was arrested and charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder, along with unlawful termination of pregnancy. The evidence was overwhelming: phone data, GPS tracking, and his own chilling confession. There was no defense, no excuse, no humanity left in his actions. In November 2018, Chris Watts stood in court, head bowed, as the judge sentenced him to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent except for the sobs of Shanann's family. They had justice, but justice didn't bring peace. Frank Rzucek, in his victim impact statement, looked at Chris and said, "You thought you'd get away with this, but you didn't. You took away our whole world." His words echoed in the courtroom, piercing through the silence like a blade. Chris never looked up. He didn't speak. He didn't cry. And that was the moment everyone understood. He wasn't sorry. Not really. He was simply caught. 7 long years have passed since the tragedy that changed everything. The world has moved on. New crimes, new scandals, new distractions. But for the Rzucek family, time has done little to dull the pain. The loss remains as sharp as the day it happened. Frank Rzucek rarely speaks publicly. When he does, his voice carries the weight of grief, but also the strength of a father who refuses to let his daughter's story fade into silence. In a recent interview, his words shocked many, not because they were cruel, but because they were brutally honest. He was asked if, after all these years, he could ever forgive Chris Watts, the man who had once been part of his family. Frank took a long breath before answering. Then, with tears threatening to break through, he said, "Forgive him? How do you forgive the devil?" He didn't yell. He didn't curse. His voice was calm, steady, but his eyes told the truth. Forgiveness wasn't possible. Not when the memories of Shanann and Bella and Celeste still haunted his every dream. He went on to describe Chris not as a man, but as a monster who betrayed love itself. And maybe he was right, because Chris Watts didn't just take lives. He took trust, safety, and faith in the goodness of family. 7 years later, Chris sits in his cell, occasionally writing letters, occasionally crying, but mostly existing. The world has forgotten him, but Frank Rzucek never will. Because when evil comes from within the family, forgiveness isn't just difficult, it's impossible. In the quiet halls of a Colorado prison, Chris Watts lives out the endless replay of his own nightmare. Each day, the same walls, the same silence, and the same guilt. If he feels remorse, no one truly knows. Some say he's found religion. Others say he's found nothing, only the echoes of what he destroyed. For the Rzucek family, there's no closure. There never can be. They visit graves instead of grandchildren. They scroll through old videos just to hear Shanann's voice again. That bright, determined voice that believed love could conquer anything. 7 years later, the world still debates the same question. Why? Why would a man who seemed so normal, so loving, do something so unthinkable? And more importantly, could anyone ever forgive him? When asked this, Frank Rzucek didn't hesitate. His eyes, weathered by grief, told the story before his mouth could form the words. No, he said, there's no forgiveness for what he did. Some things are too evil to forgive. His pain is a reminder that forgiveness isn't always a virtue. Sometimes, it's a wound that never closes. As this story fades from headlines but not from hearts, one truth remains clear. Monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they live right beside us, smiling, pretending, waiting. And perhaps that's why this case still haunts us. Because if love can turn to murder, what else hides behind the masks we trust? Thank you for watching Dark Matters True Crime. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling deep dives into the darkest corners of the human mind. Because here, every crime tells a story, and every story leaves a shadow.